Hey, change makers and visionaries. This is Reimagining Community, where we dive deep into the stories of leaders who are reshaping the world, one community at a time. I'm your host, Garland Fuller, and every episode is a radical act of connection. We're not just talking about change, we're breaking down how real people are creating it right here, right now. This podcast is more than conversations. It's a bridge where we are sharing stories that offer insight and inspiration. Whether you're an entrepreneur, consultant, volunteer, artist, or an organizational leader, this is your space to listen and learn. This is your call to create impact in the communities you hold dear and that hold you up. Let's reimagine what's possible together. Hello and welcome. Today on Reimagining Community, we are talking to the one and only Jennifer Taylor. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thanks, Garland. It's great to be here with you.
It is so good to be here with you. I knew when I started this podcast, I wanted you on because when I look at your socials, when I look at all that you're doing, not only within commercial real estate, but within the Filipino community and just everywhere you show up, Hawaii, the Philippines, New York, you're everywhere. And I said, she has figured out how local, global, like all of it comes together. And I just wanted to make sure I got not only your background, so I'm going to give you your flowers right now, but also just we're going to jump in and dive in and talk about all the awesome things that you're involved in. So let me run down Miss Jennifer's resume. Hold on. So we have 25 years of experience, right? You've got over 25 years of experience in commercial real estate. You've done everything on the, I'd say, property management, investment management, private equity. You've also got an amazing, I'd say, resume of community-based organizations that you either started, you're on the board of, or you're involved with. You're an AREP-LA founding member. You've got SIPA. You've got Swirls. It's actually quite, I'd say, impressive, but also like, where does she find the time? It's awesome, and I'm so excited to have you on today.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be here with you.
Yes. So let's jump in. I love that you call your company Ambiculture, and I had to actually go look it up because initially I was like, Ambiculture? What does that mean? And so what it says is a cultural identity where you reject the pressure to select one culture to truly belong. People with an ambicultural identity assert their ability and right to fully belong to multiple cultures. So Tell me what that means to you, your business, why you, I guess, even selected it.
So ambiculture to me, ambi meaning both, right? The merging of two things. Since when I started the platform, it was really focused on East meets West. So I come from an ethnic background of being Filipino, Asian American, doing real estate in a westernized environment. And so that's how ambiculture came together. So it's the merging of two things.
All right. So I wanted to talk about how you are able to move through cultures, because I feel like I see you in a few spaces. And keep in mind, folks, we know each other through not only AREP-LA, Swirls, which is an organization that was founded specifically for multicultural, multi-ethnic girls. She is, and we can talk about how that group even came into existence, because I feel like I found it right on time for my own daughter. But tell me about how you, I think, see moving through cultures, particularly in the work that you do.
I think that in order to really understand how somebody operates, you have to get to know their backgrounds. My parents actually didn't even meet in the Philippines. They met in New York. I was born in Jersey, but I've been raised in LA since I was 2 years old in an area called Arcadia, which is right by Pasadena. And in the 70s, it didn't look like what it looks like today. It was very waspy. Some of my best friends, some of my dear friends are blonde hair, blue eyed. And these days it's only 50% Asian now in Arcadia. So it's very different. So that's my upbringing. And I really just got the Filipino culture through my own household, because back then in the 70s, there were very few, I don't know, probably a handful of Asian Americans in Arcadia. Fast forward, I ended up marrying somebody that's Black. We ended up having 3 children that are multicultural, being raised in Arcadia. And again, it was a very different time and place. And so we ended up very intentionally did not put my kids at Arcadia Public because Asians are very prejudiced against people of color. And so I was whatever I could do to save my children's feeling from being how I was going to do it. And so we ended up putting them in this little private school in San Marino, and they ended up just being fine. Fast forward, my 2 youngest kids ended up graduating from Arcadia because at that point I felt that even though prejudice still existed, that they were old enough to be able to speak up for themselves if something happened or to come to me. And yeah, again, it was just, we could really dive into it. I had a very good relationship with our Arcadia Police Department to let them know that Black people lived in Arcadia and this is exactly where they live and they have Black friends. And we weren't going to get into the whole pulling my kids over and all of that. So in any event, that's just, I've been surrounded by very different experiences that has culminated to be able to operate in this day and age in both professionally and personal circles.
Yeah. So can we talk about Swirls for 2 secs? Because
Sure.
I remember when I came to you, my daughter was either going to be in middle school or like in 5th grade, and we started talking about identity and self-esteem and girls feeling like their self-esteem starts to wane in those years, specifically young women of color, especially if you have a mixed race identity or a multi-ethnic background. Can you tell me about how I think Swirls came into because by the time I joined, it had already been running, moving on to next generation of girls. And so I'd love to hear about how that started for you.
I remember when I told my parents that I was pregnant, and I remember sitting at the dinner table and my dad said to me, he asked me, "Are you ready to bring interracial children into this world?" And I remember thinking at that time, I was so puzzled, I didn't understand what he meant. And of course I said, yes, of course. Fast forward to, I have 3 mixed race children. And when Savannah, our oldest, was born, I did read this book that was written by a Black child psychologist, Marguerite Wright. The name of the book was I'm Chocolate, You're Vanilla. And in the book, it says that once your child turns 10 years old, they're going to realize that they're very different than, once your child turns 10 years old and they're of mixed race, they're going to realize that they're very different than the rest of their environment. And like textbook, my 10-year-old definitely saw the confidence level drop. I called the book author and I had said, I'm thinking of starting this support group for children of mixed race. And she thought that it was incredible. That was 2009. Swirls was created to focus on the advocacy of multicultural girls. Because my thought was, as a Filipino mother, I would get to this place where there would be instances that I would never be able to relate or understand what my Black children are going through. And I had friends that were in the same boat. But I also wanted to bring in friends of ours that could help us navigate, whether it's emotionally, psychologically, whether it was about skincare, hair care, just having that support group. So fast forward to 2025, the 9 girls that started the nonprofit Swirls, most of the 9, 8 have graduated from college and are working girls now. And we have serviced many children throughout the years. One thing that we did do last year is our junior board suggested that we rebrand under Swirls because there are some girls that don't identify as girls or don't see themselves as girls. And then we've had boys come through our organization over the years. And we wanted to make sure that we were relevant and that we were staying abreast of trends and making sure that we were going to be able to support these girls in a way that they feel that they needed to support this day and age.
Yeah, I 100% feel like Swirls came at the right time for us. We were moving into a private school where she was one of a few kids of color. And I think when you're in private school and you're one of the only, on top of the adolescent stage of just being self-conscious and peer influence being such a big deal, I feel like Swirls is still a good place for young women and men, children, budding people to get their sense of identity validated. I remember I asked my daughter after a few events, she's like, it's one of the few places where I feel like I can be myself and like people get me. And when you hear that from your kids, you're just like, okay, we got to keep doing this. I'm a fan of Swirls, and I've had a few conversations with other moms, particularly moms as their kids are coming into that age group. Consider how you can continue to encourage your kids to see themselves in spaces where they feel included and sense of belonging and all of that. So I love it. So I know you've been doing this with like fire. You've been doing this with SIPA. Your motivation behind building spaces for belonging, I think is a big reason for not only what drives you, but probably also just grew up that way. Can you like just tell me more about how all of this is, I think, driving you to be participating in the activities that you do and the organizations that you do?
First and foremost, by profession, I'm an investor developer. My investment thesis is investing and developing in markets with strong Asian demographics. And my thought in putting that thesis together is if you look at where institutional investors are already investing in urban markets, they're in Black and Hispanic areas, but they haven't figured out the Asian focus. And that's really where I shine. And most of the projects that I've worked on have been here, worked on, owned, developed, have been in LA and Hawaii. Hawaii just got very lucky. It's one of those markets. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but it's the only state in our country that's 15% or more Asian. And when I went over there, they accepted me with open arms. And so I continue to do deals there. It's been 20 years now, and I love it. It's one of the only places that in this country that focuses on Pacific Rim traditions. So it's a treat for me to be able to allow me back to invest in that market. As far as my Filipino community, again, I mentioned that I grew up in a very WASPy area, and my experiences of Filipino was really through a prayer group that my parents had started. Something was the name of a little baby Jesus, and my parents would do a roving rosary group every Friday, and all of the people that were part of it were Filipinos. That was fun for me. It was fun for me to be able to be with more people that look like me at least once a week. But I really didn't get, aside from FIRE, Filipinos in Institutional Real Estate, which is a nonprofit trade organization specific to the mission of mentoring, networking, and educating Filipinos in institutional real estate. That was where I found my community within my profession, and that's been around since 2009 as well. But really diving into the Filipino community didn't happen for me until 2018. I got a call, and they were looking for someone to join the board that had real estate background because they had been working on a development deal for about 10 years that couldn't come together. So the name of the organization is SIPA, Search to Involve Filipino Americans. The organization is 53 years old. It's one of the oldest and largest Filipino nonprofits servicing the community out of historic Filipino town. And I joined the organization. I just felt like I found my people. That's really where I've focused my sights. I'm now 52 years old and have decided that anything that I touch and feel has to have a multicultural component to it. Because for many years there was not that there weren't opportunities that were there, but there have been so many things that have happened, including the murder of George Floyd, that made people realize that there are other people in this country and that we have to focus on those initiatives. And so for myself, that's where I have been very intentional that whether it's professional or personal, everything has to have a multicultural slant to it. Otherwise, I'm just not doing it.
I love that. So you have made it more so like your life's a mission of if it doesn't have this component, it's hard for you to even feel connected to it in a way that just, it's, I think, legacy. It sounds like it's legacy and impact at this point. Just, I want to leave a mark behind that people know belongs to me.
That, and also that I feel that there are certain people within the community, within the professional community, that speak out. And I think that because of my personality and because of my experience, it allows me to be a little bit more bold. I laugh quite often with friends of mine that come from institutional backgrounds that when you sit on panels and you come from a big institution, comes with a lot of red tape with the things you can and cannot say. But because I have my own platform, I can say whatever I want to say, which is part of the reason why I think people invite me to sit on panels.
Yes, that is definitely true. I do remember hearing a lot about some of the private equity panels that you were on and how you're able to not sugarcoat your message because you don't have to go back and worry about a marketing and a PR department telling you that's not okay to say. So I've seen her do this. So yeah, do please. Speaking, yes, she's definitely going to give you the real. What would you say in terms of working in spaces where you are one of the only, not only women, Filipino women, specifically in spaces where, like you say, it's either WASPy or you're not necessarily considered one of the folks who have the big name, whatever. What is it that I think when you're speaking and you're walking into these rooms, how do you continue to not just show up, but just, I think, feel like you're belonging and bringing what you need to bring?
I actually think that comes from me being a middle child because I never really felt the need to, as a middle child, you straddle many worlds. And I think that's a lot of the reason why I do operate the way I do is because I've never, so no doesn't register for me. When you tell me no doesn't mean no. No means I have to ask in a different way. So it's never bothered me to sit in a room where people don't look like me. It's never bothered me to ask for something and you say no to me because I'm just going to continue to ask. I think that birthright or birth order definitely plays a part in the way that we move day to day. And that's always been my approach going into this, whether it's community and collaborating and asking, it's finding the right place, the right time, and the right way to approach things. And I do think that both personally and professionally, if you're going to go out there continually feeling like you have to ask for a seat at the table, then you're just going to be waiting around. You could talk to friends of mine from when I was a kid. They'll always tell you that I've always operated from this place that it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
I love that. So basically, go out there and take it. Go out there and be that girl.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. So can we talk about I guess you were saying that people may not be aware, but 15% of Hawaii is AAPI, and your specific type of work that you focus on is in bridging the East and the West. Can you talk about cultural differences or just things that you've learned in terms of working with the East and the West?
Absolutely. In Hawaii, so I've been investing there now since the early 2000s. And I remember walking into this meeting, and I know they meant this jokingly, but they had said, "Uh-oh, here comes the LA pushy girl." And we all laughed about it. But I know exactly what they mean because the abrasiveness of mainlanders coming over to Hawaii doesn't translate. They had a term for us. They had a term for investors coming to the mainland, investors coming from the mainland to Hawaii. They called us seagulls. So basically, you fly over, you eat their lunch, you crap on their shoulders, and then you come back to wherever you came from. And so I have always come from a place that I've treated it that I know that they're allowing me to play in their sandbox. And even though I go there and they always say, "Oh, you look like a local girl," I'll say to them, "Give it 2 seconds and you're going to hear that I'm not from here because of the way that I speak." So it's moving in the spaces where you want to be successful in. You have to know how to adapt to that particular sandbox. So I had equity partners that have invested with me in Hawaii from the East Coast, from the West Coast. But I remember this one time, one of the guys from the institutional groups coming in from LA, I had to give him an enculturation process before we even went to Hawaii, I had said to him, you can't come looking the way you come dressed up going to downtown LA. You either have to come in an aloha shirt or a polo shirt. I had said to them that the locals, again, because they're influenced by Pacific Rim traditions, before the meeting, they're going to want to sit and talk story, just shoot the breeze about and anything and everything. And I remember him asking me, he goes, how long does that last? And I said, as long as they want it to. So it could be 10 minutes, it could be an hour, it's however long they want to do it for. But it's also, I also feel that for Asian Americans, when you're going into business, they want to look you in your beady eyes and know that they feel comfortable and they trust you and that they want to do business with you. And that's the reason that they want to talk story. Again, navigating through Hawaii was and has always been really fun and really easy for me because I come from a cultural background where I understand exactly why they're doing what they're doing.
Wow, that's really good. We do that a little bit here, not probably to the same degree, but when you first meet someone or when you go to dinner, a lot of these dinner meetings, people want to break bread or they want to talk to you, eat food, but we probably don't see it like that. But it takes on a different meaning when culturally this is how you operate every day, all the time, in every situation. It's not just business. It's when you see your family, when you go places. So it's really just understanding that a culture, how they choose to create bonds and trust is not necessarily only through a handshake, right? It's very much of a let's get to know each other and talk about our lives, which is, I don't know, it's really refreshing, I think.
There are huggers out there. And that was part of the enculturation. I go, listen, they hug. He goes, they do. And I said, yeah, I said, they'll feel you out. They know that you're not from here. So they're gonna feel you out and see if you're gonna be open to the hug. But what doesn't translate over there is the bravado. Like we're so used to it here in LA. We're so used to people's boldness and the aggressive and their abrasiveness. It's being in LA. Then you go to the East Coast and it's a totally different level. But then when you go to Hawaii, all of that, not only does it mean nothing to them, it's a turnoff to them. So when you go there, just don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh my goodness. So let's talk about what else is on the horizon for you. I know you've got, of course, projects and things that you're working on, but you are, I think, involved in a lot of different things. So can you just give me what's Jennifer doing now?
Oh, wow. What am I doing now? Somebody asked me this question. I was a keynote an event very recently, and they had said the same thing. So what's on the horizon for you? But to be honest with you, Garland, if I won the lotto today, I wouldn't be doing anything differently than what I'm doing today. I would just infuse every project that I'm working on with more capital. By way of profession, I'm still working on deals. The economy and everything else that's happening in our country hasn't made it easy for the commercial real estate product type that I focus on, which is office and retail. And so I've been working on workforce housing and affordable housing projects within the Ambiculture Advisors platform. And then aside from that, FIRE keeps me busy. So I'm board president of a group that has 10 chapters throughout the United States and an international chapter in the Philippines. And so we're finding our way for our annual chapters, our annual conference in Manila that's going to happen next month. Really busy with that. FIRE Swirls keeps me busy. We were talking about the rebranding of the organization, and just very recently we focused a lot of our efforts on supporting fire victims of the LA fires. And again, we were discussing the difference, the tale of two fires, right? Palisades and Altadena, but not everybody in the Palisades is wealthy. That's a misconception. And there are a lot of workers in the Palisades that were affected. Personally, my husband was affected. He's been managing condos in the Palisades for 39 years now. And one day you wake up and that entire community is gone. And he's spent most of his waking hours, the last 4 decades, in a place that no longer exists. And when you think about not just the homeowners and the tenants and the businesses, but all of those people that supported that community. There are nannies and gardeners and other workers that have been in that community for all these years, and they've been displaced, and a lot of people are in distress. But for Swirls, our focus has really been on Altadena. I live in Arcadia. Many of the board members are very close, and so we have decided to support a charter school in Altadena that burned down. The better part of the last 30 days has been focused on supporting that school. For SIPA, I serve as their real estate advisor, and we're working on the current portfolio of affordable housing projects that they own. But again, we're in a totally different place. It's February 2025, and we're seeing things like red cards and ICE protocols, like things you wouldn't think about in the past that are now top of mind, and figuring out how do we navigate not only with the community members and the tenants, but then also as landlords and as investors, how we're working with the different agencies to make sure that, again, everything comes together so that we can move forward. Those are the things that have kept me busy. I toy with writing a book. I have a business coach that's been telling me to write a book, and I sit and I think, like, what if I write a book, what would I write about? And she says, everybody has a story and everybody wants to hear a story. So trying to think about
So
what
you
could that
should
be.
write a book. I'm going to second this. I'm going to tell you should write a book. You have a lot of stories in you, and you have done a lot of things. And I think you are probably not aware of this, but I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of women watching you. A lot of women watching you.
I appreciate that. And I have, like you, have my own daughters. And one of those, I don't know, I just learned this term last year, a multi-hyphenate, and realized that I'm probably the epitome of what a multi-hyphenate is. Just figuring out what the end goal would be, whether it's being a little immigrant, a little Catholic girl in Arcadia from an immigrant family, and figuring out how to operate, or if it's the mother and wife of a multicultural family, or if it's an emerging manager in commercial real estate, breaking into that piece of it. There's just there's so much. So
Or
I'm trying
all
to
of
figure
the
out.
above, because that is what it is. I know, and I say this, so I read the memoirs, okay? I'm the memoir person, and I think what makes memoirs interesting is that people are multifaceted. They do not have just one identity. Everything kind of shapes and bleeds into the next thing, which influences the next thing. And so if you are telling your hero's journey story, which I think you should totally do, it is starting to tell that initial story of, yes, Catholic girl from Arcadia, Filipino background, blah, 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 but also how you became that person who decided to go out and do these things and live this existence. Because I think there are more people that we need to, I think, embrace intersectionality. No one's just one anything. We are not one anything. We are multiple things. And I think your story is essentially like an intersection of the ambiculture of all of the things that make up who you are. And I think so many people see themselves in your story, Filipino or not Filipino, this pride, this belonging, this sense of I'm going to do it anyway, be bold, be unapologetic. There's something really powerful about that story. And I think we need to tell more of those stories so that the next generation of women who have the same kind of, I don't know if is my story big enough? Can I do it? They need to see the Jennifer Taylors saying, heck yes, you can. You go out there and get it. Go out there and do it. So yes, you need to write the book.
I was just talking to our kids yesterday, and so Greggy just came home from a track meet, so Rod and I picked him up from LAX, and we FaceTime the girls on Sundays. So we're all on the telephone, and I don't know how we got to this. Rod made a comment, and one of the kids was like, I love how you ride for Filipinos, Mom. And I had said, and then one of them said that They're glad that they come from different cultures and have that richness of being able to embrace both sides of it. And they're like, I'm glad that I have parents that show up for both for our culture, for our ethnicities, for our races, for our nationalities. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I just got my dual citizenship last year. And so there's more that I can do in the Philippines now. But then my kids got their dual citizenship as well. So it opens the doors for different things in different parts of your life. I don't think that I would have been open to having my dual citizenship a while ago. When I first married Rod, I was already in commercial real estate. I was in property management. And I remember I was so happy to change my last name. So my maiden name is Del Rosario. And all through growing up, it was the same thing. How do you spell your last name? It's like deep breath, 2 words, lowercase del, second word, capital Rosario. So my thought when I married Rod is, oh, that all goes away, right? If you can't spell Jennifer Taylor, no one's ever asked me how to spell Jennifer Taylor. So that was my initial thought in 1997. Fast forward to I don't know, it was probably 2019. And I had said to myself, gosh, I'm actually really sad that I didn't hyphenate my name. My only piece of content is in my Filipino passport. It actually says Jennifer Del Rosario Taylor. But at this point, it's too late to go back and change it. I wish I wasn't. It wasn't that I was embarrassed of it. It was because I just didn't want to have to go through spelling all of it. But in hindsight, I wish I kept it, and I wish that people continue to ask me, how do you spell Del Rosario?
Yeah. Good story. So we're going to wrap up. I have 2 questions I ask everyone. How are you reimagining your place in community with others today?
How am I reimagining my place in community today? In my Filipino community, I think it is bringing all of the generations together to understand the history, the present, and moving forward in the future, and hoping that there comes to this place of understanding that, today we're not in the same time and space that we were 100 years ago, and we're also not going to be in a place that we're looking forward to what it looks like in the next 50 years. So hoping that everybody has a little patience, tolerance, and collaboration so that we can move forward together.
Yeah. So what's a song that instantly brings you back to feeling connected and being energized about being with other people? Whether it's a family event, whether it's hanging out with your girls in the car, whether it's you're going to a festival or a fair or a night out, and you're like, we put this song on and everybody gets so juiced up.
It's Estelivi's Week.
Right.
Because I feel like it doesn't matter how old or how young you were. I've sat in my car with my kids singing at the top of their lungs, to being in Manila at a karaoke bar with my girlfriends singing at the top of our lungs. It's Week.
Oh, that's a good one. That is a bop. That is a good one. So thank you so much for your time today. I am going to put all of Jennifer's information in the show note, all the org she's a part of. Of course, you can find her on LinkedIn. And then just keep doing what you're doing. I'm telling you this right now. Keep doing what you're doing.
And Garland, you know that I've been a big fan of yours for many years, and I love how you come out for the community, whether it's personally or professionally, especially with something like this. Nobody else is doing it, so you're a force to be reckoned with.
Thank you so much. If this conversation moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because every week we're bringing you more stories of real transformation. Drop a comment, share your thoughts, and tag the folks in your circle who need to hear this. Want to go deeper? Check out the Community Impact Collective. Sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description. Now is the time. Are you in?